Legend has it that long, long ago, a tribe in the impassable mountain world of the Philippine Cordilleras was inhabited by a people who lived solely on game and roots. Even though they were skilled hunters, they went hungry time and again. One day, a hunter by the name of Vigan lost his way in the humid tropical jungle. Suddenly, he found strange plants growing on the slopes. He sowed seeds and watered them, and since that day, people in the north of the Philippines have lived from the blessing of the god Manongan. That is the legend of the Ifugao. Paddy fields as far as the eye can see, up to an altitude of 1,600 meters. They cover the mountain slopes of the island of Luzon in the northern Philippines like a densely woven carpet. The steppes soar up heavenwards. If all the stone walls and clay embankments of the terraces were joined together in a straight line, they would stretch halfway around the world. The first fields were established here more than 2,000 years ago by the Ifugao, a farming people who, it is thought, migrated here from Indonesia. The rice fields of the Ifugao are a unique cultural landscape, a masterpiece of irrigation technology and the art of terracing. Covering an area of some 20,000 square kilometers, in 1995, this landscape was added to the World Cultural Heritage List. But how much longer will these terraces continue to feed those who own them? Hidden away behind high mountains and only accessible through a 2-hour walk along narrow paths is the town of Batad. Like an amphitheatre, the rice terraces nestle around the village to form an inseparable unit. Batad has 1,500 inhabitants, nearly all of whom still live in traditional wooden houses built on stilts. These dwellings have a long thatched roof of kogon grass and just one room for the whole family. There are no TV sets here, no computers, no fridges and no telephones. Because Batad doesn't have an electricity supply. There's a primary school for the numerous children here, but the next doctor is a long way off. The Almena family on their way to their paddy field. It may be small, but even so, there is a lot of work to be done every day. Gregorio and Christina's 4 eldest children still attend school. Normally they would have to help as well. There are no machines in Batad, so every pair of hands is needed. The cold-resistant type of rice that grows in Batad, at an altitude of nearly 1,000 meters, is known as Tinawan. Like the other Ifugao farmers, Gregorio and Christina only plant traditional varieties. Modern strains have a higher yield but are less resistant to pests, and besides, no one here can afford the fertilizer they require. The Ifugao do their planting out in February and March. It takes more than 1,000 hours' work to cultivate 1 hectare of paddy field, and that's with just 1 harvest a year. These shoots are 2 to 3 months old. It will take roughly another 4 months before the rice can be harvested. Land is in short supply in the northern Philippines. So people here utilise every available square metre in the attempt to wrest their staple diet from the mountains. No single plot is regular. Most of the fields, which are only a few square metres in size, are adapted to the contours of the land. Even in the 19th century, Gregorio's ancestors were still regarded as notorious headhunters, and for a long time, missionaries did not dare venture into the remote world of the mountains. It was only after the Second World War that the Ifugao became Catholics. Gregorio has been baptized and attends Mass every Sunday, but where rice is concerned, he places his faith in other gods. In ancient rituals, chickens are sacrificed and consecrated with a spirit distilled from rice. The sacrifices are designed to placate the gods and keep the soul of the rice healthy. Even today, the Ifugao still regard rice growing as a partnership between man and the gods. Everyday life and the Ifugao's festivals are geared to the rhythm of the rice culture. The village head man establishes contact with the gods and spirits responsible for the rice. From the look of the intestines, he not only prophesies whether the harvest will be rich or poor, but also forecasts the future prosperity and health of the villagers. Since meat is scarce in Batad, every sacrifice forms the basis of a ceremonial meal. In this way, the villagers give thanks not only to the gods of nature, but also to their Christian God for the welcome change. The Ifugao region is still a well-functioning ecosystem. The biggest section of forest serves as a water store, and since it's regarded as sacred, the trees are protected. Nor can this part of the forest be sold. By comparison, the area further down is cropped to obtain wood for building and heating purposes. But it is reforested time and again. Between the rice fields, there are a handful of vegetable plots, where the families grow what they need. At night, Gregorio tells us, he often sleeps near the fields, scaring off the birds with firecrackers and making sure that there is enough water in the paddy. The distribution of water is a recurring problem, we learn. Even though there is sufficient water available and the entire region is crisscrossed by a sophisticated network of channels, here, Gregorio says, the distribution of water is a task attended to solely by the menfolk. The terraces must not be allowed to dry out, and Gregorio takes great care to ensure that this doesn't happen. Ideally, the water should be between 2.5 and 7 centimetres deep. This keeps weeds down and ensures a good harvest. Gregorio is sceptical whether his children will continue the arduous tradition of growing rice here. He plans for his eldest daughter to inherit all his land. If he followed the ancient custom of dividing up his fields amongst all his children, Gregorio says, then no one would get enough to eat. Gregorio is happy. This year the ears look good, so in August he'll be harvesting around 300 kilograms of rice. But that is only a quarter of the volume a lowland farmer obtains twice a year from the same area using modern varieties. Gregorio has no desire to abandon the ancient traditions, but more and more other Ifugao, especially the younger generation, take a different view. In Banaue, The administrative centre, located some 30 kilometres away, money can be earned a lot faster than in the paddy fields. Quite a few Ifugao have found employment here. They ferry tourists around on tricycle taxis, sell souvenirs, or work in hotels and restaurants. Anyone who has tasted modern life in Banao has no desire to return to the mud of the paddy fields. The fields then fall into disrepair. 80% of the young men leave their villages, preferring, whether in Banao or in Manila, to live in concrete buildings with running water instead of in a hut. The rice terraces have formed the basis of the Ifugao's livelihood and identity for 2,000 years, but they're now economically outdated. It's hardly worthwhile growing rice here anymore. If the terraces are not looked after, they will soon deteriorate. And the ancient varieties of rice, together with knowledge that has been handed down for centuries, will disappear along with them. This would mean the irreparable loss of what is still known as a wonder of the world. Conserving relics in a museum will not of itself protect the world cultural heritage. Castles, palaces and aqueducts can be preserved without their original users. But the building skills of the Ifugao will only survive the modern era as long as the arduous task of growing rice on these terraces proves worthwhile.